Hey, welcome to another recording of Invincible You. We have a guest with us. We have the lovely Ali West. Welcome, Ali.
Thanks, Kevin, for having me. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for stepping forward. We found each other on LinkedIn, I believe.
Yeah,
Didn't we?
that's correct.
Yeah. Just so as people get a sense of who you are or where you're from, tell people a little bit about your business.
Yeah, my business is called Kinetic Fitness. We are a gym and personal training and small group training facility, or gym, you could say, in Nottingham city centre. We've been going since January 2017, and we mainly specialise in the private training. So it's more of the personal training and small group training.
Yeah.
But we do also have a gym membership as well. And I've lived in Nottingham all my life. I'm born and bred here. So yeah, homegrown.
Nice one. So I asked you this off the recording, but I'm going to ask you again because it was a really interesting answer that you gave. Why the name Kinetic?
Well, I've always been passionate about movement, human movement, just movement in general, and how we move as human beings and how movement is provided. And I was looking around for a name. It took me ages to think of a name for the business. Went through so many different ideas, so many different logos, so many different color schemes. And then I thought, kinetic. I thought, movement. What is movement? What is energy? And kinetic just means energy and movement of energy. So I actually ended up stylizing the kinetic. So usually kinetic has a C on the end, but ours has a K on the end. So it's Kinetik. And funnily enough, it was obviously meant to be. It just works nicely with the way it looks and with the big K. If anyone's seen our logo, we've got like a big red K. So it works nicely with the branding and with what we try and promote, which is functional movement and human movement and moving as we're designed to move, really.
Yeah. And I'm really interested later on in the recording to go into that a little bit more because I'm really keen to learn more about it, but also it feels so organic. Organic is the word that I want to use. Everything that, sometimes you just come across stuff in life and you go, that's really organic right there. And it just feels really nice. When you talk about functional movement and when you say, what was it you say? When we move like humans or human movement, it just feels really nice. Again, to give people a little bit of an understanding of who you are, how did you end up in the arena that you now found yourself in?
Yeah, my background was always football. So I grew up playing football, passionate about football from a very young age. All I ever wanted to do was be a professional footballer. Don't get me wrong, I didn't scrimp and scrape at school. I still realised and valued education, so I made sure that I did well enough at school. But I was always passionate about football, and I played good standard of football up until the age of 18, 19. So I was never professional, but I was playing a good level of semi-professional football.
Yeah.
And at 19, I tore my cruciate. I tore my ACL, complete rupture. And it took a while to put a finger on what it was. I had to actually have an MRI scan to find out that it was a torn cruciate. And if anybody knows anything about movement, the anterior cruciate ligament governs all lateral, which is sideways, and all rotational twisting type movements. So without it in sport, whether that's football, rugby, basketball, whatever, you're pretty much screwed. So I had surgery. I had reconstructive surgery, had a patella tendon graft done on that, and got back to playing, but never to really the level that I was at. So it was a real turning point at 20 in my life, thinking, where am I going to go? What am I going to do with my life? And I was randomly at a dinner party, and a friend at the time, she said, have you ever contemplated or considered being a personal trainer? And I was like, no, because I've never stepped foot in a gym other than to run on the treadmill or to do the rowing machine with the football team. I'd never contemplated it. So I looked into it. I did an intensive gym instructor course, which was 2 weeks. Off the back of that, I was lucky enough to get a job at Virgin Active, which most people would have heard of and know.
Yeah.
Big corporate chain here in the UK. Worked with them for 3 years, and then went on to run my own PT business and eventually my own gym. So that's a kind of little potted short version of my history.
And what about the because you have, when I read through your bio, you have quite a there's quite a spiritual side to you, isn't there? It,
100%.
it's really interesting because when you said football, I was like, I never expected that. That was the one word I never expected to come out of your mouth was about football. So tell me about the spiritual journey. Where did that begin?
Yeah, this is a quite a interesting and probably powerful story. And if you want me to go deeper into it, I probably can. So my spiritual journey started in 2015.
Yeah.
The exact date was the 17th of May, 2015. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I was in Sedona in Arizona. If anyone's ever been to Sedona or knows about it, they'll probably know that it's a beautiful place in Arizona, red rock mountains, beautiful canyons, incredible landscapes. But also, if anyone knows about Sedona, they'll know that it's a very spiritual place and a place full of high energy. So that's where it began. And it began through meditation. My friend took me to Sedona. He was living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time. And we did some hiking and some trekking. And then he was like, "Do you want to do some meditation?" And I'd never done meditation in my life, gave it a go. And the rest is history. But there's also some very kind of unusual and interesting things happened to me whilst I was in Sedona. So if you want me to elaborate on them, I can. But that's when it all started, was in
Oh,
2015.
Sedona. I am so keen to go to Sedona now. I got married in the Grand Canyon, which I know it's a bit of it's an icon, but I remember standing in the Grand Canyon and thinking, wow, this is like it's I couldn't we couldn't have picked a more special place. I mean, like stood right on the kind of the edge, not right on the edge, but close enough that you could look and for like miles and miles. It was just incredible. So, but no, Sedona really. What year did you say it was?
2015.
So only like 6 years ago.
Yep, 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 yep.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's been a real journey since that. And I think that the spiritual health and the spiritual practice is something that I'm just hugely passionate about,
Yeah,
because it's changed my life, benefited me in so many ways, and I know that it's helped a lot of other people as well.
yeah,
But the work that I've done on myself through spiritual practices has allowed me to help others
yeah,
in a more effective manner, in a more effective way as well.
yeah. I love it when you get this. I love it when I meet other people that have like this mixed bag of like experience. A lot of people, I use the title psychotherapist under my name because that's how I'm trained. But actually, if I'm truly honest, the spiritual side of my journey came way before the psychotherapy training, and it's still very much in place. And I kind of dip in and out of the spiritual side, but I'm massive believer, and I get a lot of peace and comfort from the spiritual side of my journey. So, but I do love it when I meet other people, and you just get this mixed bag in it because it makes for really interesting people, doesn't it?
Definitely, definitely. And I think the further you go down your spiritual path or your spiritual journey, I think you start to realize and resonate with people that way inclined, you could say, as well.
Yeah, well, you begin to share the same energies, and you're on the same frequencies, and all of that other talk that we say in spiritual circles. I'd love to know more about Sedona. If we get time towards the end of the recording, then I think it'd be really interesting to share one of those experiences of Sedona. When I looked at your bio again, there was like stacks and stacks of stuff on there that you offered to talk about. So I've picked out a few. Again, I'm interested in them. One I currently do, but I want other people to understand more about them. So we're going to begin with cold therapy. So I kind of understand what it is, but again, for people listening, what is cold therapy?
Cold therapy is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's therapeutic work or therapeutic practices by utilizing the cold. So
Yeah,
exposing yourself and your body and your mind, and you could say the spirit, if we want to go that far, to bouts of cold so that it can grow stronger, grow mentally stronger, your body as well. And also you have a lot of longevity benefits as well. So it is really as simple as it says. It's therapeutic cold And there's various ways that you can practice it or implement it as well.
Yeah. Do you know? So I'm asking this question. I have no idea whether you know the answer or not, and it's absolutely okay for you not to know it. But do you know why it's so effective on the body?
Yeah, there's a couple of key reasons. The first one is it encourages more brown fat production and more brown fat storage. So a lot of people would have heard of like just white fat and also visceral fat, but we also have brown fat as well. And brown fat is really healthy and it's really good for us, because what brown fat does is it actively goes out and seeks the, in air quotes, unhealthy fats, and it
Yeah.
eats them away. So over time, you'll have fat that is healthier for your body, healthier for your whole system,
Yeah.
and it'll also help with the things that fat should help with. So protection of vital organs,
Yeah.
energy, and also insulation as well. So
Yeah.
the more that people practice the cold, they'll build up more brown fat.
Yeah.
They'll actually lose the body fat that they don't want, the unwanted body fat that will or it'll be reduced. And in turn, you get the benefits of feeling warmer, feeling healthier, having more energy, those kind of things. So that's the first thing, brown fat production. The second one that happens with cold therapy that's really good is you get stimulation of the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. So it runs from the digestive system, from the gut, all the way up to the brain. And when we do cold therapy, it stimulates this nerve. And this nerve is so important for various different functions in your body. In particular, digestion, that's one of the key ones, but there's so many other benefits as well to getting this vagus nerve stimulated. I will point out that cold therapy is not the only way that you can stimulate your vagus nerve. Yeah. There is other ways to do it, but that is a key benefit of cold therapy. So that's kind of two of the real main biological and chemical mechanisms, you could say, that are really beneficial that are stimulated through cold therapy.
Yeah, I went to a cryo. Was it a cryo chamber?
Yeah, cryotherapy.
Yeah, cryotherapy. There's a place now in Lincoln, which is not too far away from where I am in Newark. And I was really keen to kind of step into it and try it, because I'm really bad with the cold. I'm not, if I get to a pool and it's cold, I'm the worst. But the other person that springs to mind is who do you think I'm going to say when we start talking about cold?
Mr. Hoff.
Yes,
Mr. Hoff.
Yeah. The infamous Mr. Hoff. For everybody listening that doesn't know the Hoffman technique, go away and Google the Hoffman technique. He's fairly famous now, isn't he, the guy?
Yeah, he's massive. I mean, Wim Hof's been around for a very long time, but because he's done amazing feats and accomplished many things, and also developed his own technique. He's huge. He's massive now, and I've actually done 2 Wim Hof workshops, and it's so powerful and so incredible. And and the great thing I love about Wim is that he says that he's no different to everyone else, and anyone can do it, which is what I preach and promote as well, is that we're all different, but we're all one, we're all the same. So we all have the ability to achieve anything, to do anything, to create amazing lives. We all have that ability within us. So that's one thing to point out that Wim maybe doesn't talk about that much, but he does say anyone can do it. Anyone can jump in the cold. Anyone can do his breathing techniques, and that's super powerful in its own right.
Super powerful, because my basic understanding of his work is, so as I would be fearful of getting into water, because if I go into cold water, my mind thinks I'm going to die immediately because of the cold, and I shiver and I shake and I go all strange. He actually trains people to train their minds into getting into cold water, but just breathing through it, doesn't he?
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's just what you're experiencing is no different to what most people would experience. The vast majority of people, if you say take a cold shower or jump in an ice bath or jump in the lake, they're gonna panic and they're gonna be shocked, because that's the body's natural defense mechanisms. It's how we've been wired up for millennia to react. It's that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can kind of get in control of that through practice, through repetition, and by controlling our breath, we can handle those situations a lot more effectively, and then
Yeah.
go more into the rest and digest rather than the fight or flight.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So just to conclude that, so cold therapy can be done in any. There's many different forms it can be done in. One of the simplest is to get in a shower and just turn it cold and just
Exactly. That's how I started. I started my cold therapy, like properly getting into it, at the beginning of 2019. So I'm a good 2 years into to doing it properly and doing it consistently now. And that's the way I started. It's so simple for anyone listening. Just start your shower blazing hot, if you like it blazing hot. Do all your washing, do your stuff, whatever you do in the shower.
yeah,
And then for the last 10 seconds, just don't mess about. Just turn it fully cold and try and get as much of your body under the cold shower as possible. So you might not be able to get your head in first. That's okay. And it doesn't really matter to get your head in, you can do, but some of the key points to get is like your chest and your armpits and your back, because that's where a lot of the nerves flow in and out of. Obviously, you've got your heart and lungs on your chest as well, so it's really important that the cold hits the chest as well. And then you can build up to getting your head under and fully submerging. You can build up to doing longer, and before you know it, with consistency and repetition, you'll be able to do longer and longer. And you get to the point which I'm at now is sometimes you don't know whether the tap's hot or cold because you've built up that tolerance.
wow.
It sounds crazy, but it's so true. You build up
That's
that tolerance, and you can get longer and more effective at doing it. But I would say to any listener, just 10 seconds, and then the next time maybe build it up to 15, but do small increments and just start building it up. That's one way. Another way you can do it is almost like interval training, but in the shower. And this is called a contrast shower. So you start hot, turn it to cold, hot, cold, and just keep alternating like that. So it's really simple. It's a simple skill to do, a simple thing to do. It costs virtually nothing other than the water bill. And it's so easy. Anyone can do it. Everyone has access to a shower. Pretty much everyone. Anyone that listens to this will have access to a shower, and we all have the ability to do it. Just brave it, commit to it, and the best thing about cold showering is the way you feel after. So you'll turn it cold, you'll get out, and you'll be like, whoa, like you feel this rush, and that's like the endorphins. That's the happy hormones flowing through your body. And your body's response to it as well, because this type of, and we're going to talk about some more of this hormetic stress. It's called hormesis, which is, it's kind of, everyone's heard of this, the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So everyone's heard that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is called hormetic stress or hormesis. It's where we apply small bouts of stress to our body so that the body can grow and become stronger. And this is what cold therapy is. So we're giving our body an actual stress. So yes, it's scary. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, you may not want to do it, but your body will thank you for it in the long term. And an example of this, I'll kind of cut this off here, but an example of this is now, a lot of time people I see, they're like wrapped up in big jackets, or I hear people saying, I'm freezing cold, and I'm walking around in maybe a t-shirt or a thin jacket because I've built up that brown fat. I've built up that tolerance to the cold that I don't need all of these layers on top of me. And if we go back to kind of ancestral history and ways of living, back in the day, they wouldn't have had a big North Face coat to wrap up in. They'd have had to keep themselves warm. And the way they would have kept themselves warm is twofold. Through the fire, being around the fire, but also from being exposed to the cold and their body doing the things it needs to do to warm them up. And your body will always kind of protect the middle section. It'll always protect the brain. It'll always protect the vital organs. So a lot of people are like, oh, I went in the cold shower, Ali, but I couldn't feel my hands or I couldn't feel my toes. And well, yeah, that's your body working as it should. Your fingers aren't going to be necessary in the long term, or your toes, but your heart and lungs and liver and kidneys and brain, you can't live without them.
Yeah. I always think it's really interesting, and I didn't know that phrase. Hormetic or hormetic stress?
Hormesis, yeah.
Hormetic stress, when you think about it, sometimes therapy can be a little bit stress provoking. And if you're working with a really good therapist, then it's about gentle exposure. when I've got one of these mats that I lie on, the little, the little spiky mats,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's really uncomfortable. When I was using that, I was like, what is it about putting the body through this pain, these really uncomfortable situations that actually, when we come back out of them, it feels like it just, for me, it feels like, and I haven't done a cold shower, but what I am going to do, this podcast will be out probably in about 2 weeks from the day we're recording it. I'm going to commit. My intention is to start tomorrow morning, which would be a Wednesday, with maybe in interval cold showers, because it is something that I want in my world. So I'm going to commit to doing that on this podcast right now. But
Yeah,
the Matt, and I always think, what is it about putting putting the body through that it just feels like it's really painful, it's really uncomfortable, but then the body feels alive, feels like it moves everything, doesn't it? Just shifts
definitely,
everything
definitely.
around.
Yeah, there's so many benefits. I mean, that's something that I didn't really mention there, but the benefits are there's so many different benefits. I wouldn't say unlimited, but there's many, many benefits to practicing the cold. But some of the key ones are centered around longevity and also reduction of what we'd call the four biggest killers. So the four biggest killers are dementia, Alzheimer's, cancer, coronary heart disease, or any kind of cardiovascular disease, and diabetes. So if we can avoid those big four, we're onto a winner, because after that, most people die in old age of a trip or fall. So it's those four and then a trip or fall. So if we can prevent those big four, which we can with cold therapy, then we can live potentially a longer life as well. And there's some really interesting studies that are being worked on that are coming out with relation to the cold and the mental diseases as well. So in particular, dementia and Alzheimer's, there's a lot of research now. It's still very early days, but there's more and more research emerging to say that if you practice the cold regularly and you get these shocks of cold into
Yeah,
your body, then the prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia is increased.
yeah. Really simply, from a when I think about it from a psychotherapeutic angle, for me, it's about training the mind into a much stronger and resilient place in terms of, we can survive this. And
Absolutely.
when I look at the Hoffman technique, that's all that's about. It's about training the mind into going, I can do this, we can do this, we can survive this. And it just becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. When I lie down on the mat, my body might think, oh my goodness, this is really uncomfortable and it's going to hurt you. And then I do it 2 or 3 times, half a dozen times, a dozen times, and then my mind starts to go, it's
Yeah.
fine. You can do
Yeah,
this. And
definitely.
it's
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's the one thing that I really enjoy about it, is that resilience. Because
yeah,
I'm probably sitting here and people are listening to this and thinking, well, it's all good and well for him. He's doing cold showers. But there's some days, not every day I want to do a cold shower. Sometimes I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't really want to do this. I don't want to turn it cold, but I do it because I know the benefits that I'm getting. And I always think it's like kind of that ticking off one thing. If I've done
yeah,
that first thing in the morning, I've got under the shower and I've built some resilience, then when something really comes to tackle me, I'm going to be able to tackle whatever that is in a more uh, positive way, in a more effective way, and probably get a better end result out of that challenging
yeah,
thing that might arise later in the day as well. So, yeah, I mean, the mental side of the cold is a huge part of it,
yeah,
and resilience is something that we need to build as a nation, and as human beings. We need to build up that resilience, and there's never been a time more so than in the last 12 months that showed that.
yeah. Absolutely. Uh, what came into my head then was, it feels like sometimes as a nation, as a race, that we've become a little bit pampered with the amazing world that we have around us, with our central heating and our hot water and our fluffy towels and all the rest of it. But it feels like we have become somewhat pampered, and therefore it feels like it has weakened us. And over the last 10, 15 years, it feels like there's more and more movements towards this kind of like different types of shock therapy, and almost like to build us back up to that resilience that we might have had 1,000 years ago.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree
So
more.
yeah, let's move on. Move on. So cold therapy. Oh, where do I want to go? Oh, I'm going to go to. I'll tell you where I'm going to go, and this is again for selfish reasons. My podcast, I can do what I want. I'm going to go to fasting, and the reason I'm going to go to fasting is because everybody that listens to my work knows that I talk about fasting. Do I understand the deepness of it? No, I don't. Do I know that it's good for me? I do. So just to clarify, I fast 5 days a week, Tuesday through to Saturday. I intermittent fast. That means I have my last meal in an evening, and then I don't eat again until 5 o'clock the next day. During the day, I'll drink water, black tea occasionally, but not very often. It's usually just water. Is it good for me? It allows me to feel very alert. I usually feel very alert in the middle of a fast because I am not thinking about food. I'm not considering it, and it feels really nice on my body. And also, it keeps on a veiner level. It keeps my body fat down as well, which is
Absolutely.
nice. So, from your perspective, why is fasting good for us?
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I'd like to point out is that I'm no fasting expert, but I can only talk from my own experience, but not just my own experience, what I've experienced with my clients and the people that I help as well that have utilized fasting or practiced fasting. And I mean, it's such a big area, but the reason why I think it's so good and so powerful and why it works is because it's what we've said already about the same things we've said in relation to the cold. It's how we're kind of designed and wired up to be. We was
Yeah.
never designed to eat 3 or 5 or 7 square meals a day to start off with. We've only been doing that for the last couple of 100 years. Um, and then the second reason is it's going back to that hormetic stress again. It won't kill you to not eat a meal. It won't kill you, but it'll actually make you stronger, and it'll make you stronger on the deepest level of your health and well-being, which is technically your mitochondria and your cellular health. So that's the deepest you can go. You can't go any deeper than that. So if we can fix our mitochondria, if we can make more mitochondria, and if we can improve our cell function and our cellular health, then that's going to affect everything out and
Yeah.
radiate everything out. So really, that's why it's so beneficial, why fasting is so beneficial, because it goes so deep. It goes to the deepest level of your health and well-being. And we're going back to, in air quotes, that ancestral way of living, which is how we're meant to live, in my opinion.
Yeah. What is, we there, a few years ago, there was a diet around called the caveman diet. And when we look at those early understandings of who we were as a race, it does feel like on many levels, we're going back to that. In terms of the fasting, is there as, because I know a lot of people do intermittent, and then some people will go on a fast for like 2 or 3 days. When I talk to people about fasting, and I just talk casually about it, one things I hear all the time is, "No, couldn't do it, couldn't do it, couldn't do it. I'd feel weak, I'd pass out, I'm on my feet all day. It's okay for you. You're sat down when you're working." And I'm like, I can go to the gym and do a full workout without even considering that I need food. I can go and do the shopping, so I don't get triggered by shopping. I can go and do the shopping. I've bulked cook. I've made like a massive chili or a bolognese in the middle of a fast because it doesn't bother me, because it's, for me, in my relationship with food, it's healthy. It's good
Mm.
for me because it means I can just, it's like a little switch in my head, and I go, switch off, food's not happening, we're done with that for the time being. And then when it gets to 5 o'clock, I know that I can eat, and I know usually what I'm going to eat at 5 o'clock. So for me, it feels really, really healthy. But honestly, when people say, "Oh no, I couldn't do it, I'd pass out and I'd be really weak," and I'm like, no, you wouldn't. That's your fear. Your fear.
Yeah.
But once you do it, it's incredible.
Oh,
Once you,
definitely. Well, let's point this out right now. So as we record this, it's Tuesday afternoon at like 3:30. And the last time I ate was Sunday night. So I'm 43 hours into a fast.
wow.
And I'm here talking to you. My brain's functioning okay because
Yeah.
I'm reeling off like relatively big words. And my energy levels are absolutely fine. So I'm 43 hours into a fast. I don't know how long this fast is going to go on. I'm just playing it by ear. I've not set any kind of time frame on it. My wife just broke her fast. She did about 40 hours of fasting.
That's
So,
incredible.
and there's nothing on me. I'm like 11 stone if that wet through.
Yeah.
Very low body fat percentage. I'm ticking around. I hover between 9 and 11% all the time.
Yeah.
But my body's not giving in on me. It's not collapsing. My mind's not giving in on me and not collapsing. So if you are like maybe more overweight, or you carry more weight, then you probably find it actually easier to do than somebody with less weight, because you've got more fat storage, you've got more energy to be called upon. But what happens is exactly what you said, is they've got the thing in their mind. They've got this attachment to food, or because they're not eating very well, they're getting cravings because of their biological and chemical makeup of their body is all out of whack and out of sync. The metabolism could be out of sync. Their gut health could be out of sync.
Yes.
So we can see when we do start practicing fasting how we can go into many different other avenues of health and well-being as well. So yeah, I mean, the fasting is similar to the cold. It's some in the mind, some in the body, some in the spirit. It's all three. And for people to, what makes me laugh is people say I could never do that without even trying it.
Yeah.
And I'm not one for trying either. I'm one for doing my best. So are you saying I could never do that without doing your best to give it a go in the first place? So if the answer is I'm saying that and I haven't even tried it, or I haven't even done my best, then maybe you should give it a go.
Yeah.
And if you have done your best and give it a go, then that's fine. And maybe it's not for you. Fasting, I personally think it is for everybody, but it might not be for you. It might not work. But at least give it a go. At least do your best at doing what you do, 16 hours or 14 hours or even 12 hours. Just skip breakfast to start off with. If you skip breakfast, you've already done technically like a 12 or 14 hour fast anyway. So, and that's not that difficult to do, because a lot of people are skipping breakfast already. It's just when they do the other meals, they're not probably consuming the right foods in between.
Yeah. That's how I started when I knew that I wanted to do it. And it must be, I said 2 or 3 years, it must be like 3 or 4 years now that I've been doing this. But I started by skipping breakfast, and then I just kept pushing it back until it kind of landed at 5. And 5 felt like a nice time to do it. The one thing that I haven't done, and this is my lack of development in that one area, is I haven't pushed it. I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to kind of go on, push it. You're only your window of eating is only 3 or 4 hours. Just push it through that window, and then go to the next day. And I've kind of thought about it, but I haven't. But I'm not going to make a commitment to do that. I'm going to start with the cold showers.
Yeah.
I'm going to
this is the thing to point out as well, Kevin, and to the listeners, is there's many different types of fasting. So you practice intermittent fasting, which is brilliant. I'd say that is probably the best one. It's the best way for people to start, which is intermittent fasting is a portion of fasting and a portion of eating, or feasting, if you want to say that. Yeah. So the most common protocol is 16-8, where we fast for 16 hours and then we eat in an 8-hour window. And this works really, really well because people can fit it around their life, around their social schedule, around their work schedule, and they can get all the benefits, reap all the benefits, the masses of benefits from fasting just by practicing intermittent fasting. And I'm not saying practice it every single day or 5 days like you do. Just start with 1 or 2 days a week, 1 or 2 days, and you will be absolutely amazed at the differences that it can make. Not just in your body fat reduction, because a lot of people do fasting because they want to lose weight or they want that kind of aesthetic feeling from it. But for me, that's not what fasting is about. For me, it's more the longevity benefits, the deeper stuff that you can't see, and also that commitment and that resilience and that dedication to yourself. That I can do this, and I can't and I won't give in to my mind, that kind of chimp mind, or that craving or whatever it may be, because you're going to get it because we're wired up for food. Like, we want energy, we want to eat, and we want to reproduce. That's what we do. So you're going to have cravings, you're going to want food. I mean, there's been points, I'm 43 hours in now, there's been points where I thought, I could eat, I could break my fast, and I'm like, no, why am I doing it? What's the reasons? And I'm not saying go and do a 3-day fast or a 5-day fast. Most people would never get anywhere near that. And also, I wouldn't say to anybody to do that until they've got experience with at least skipping breakfast and then intermittent fasting. And then there's another form of fasting called 1 meal a day, or some people might have seen it as OMAD because it sounds cooler, OMAD, 1 meal a day fasting. That's where you just eat maybe in the evening. So that's another type. Then you've got extended fasts, like what I'm on. So extended fasts are usually 24 hours or more, so where we go beyond 24 hours, and people have done longer fasts than 7 days. People have done 21 days, 30 days. The body could probably survive. I'm not saying do this, but the
Yeah.
body can survive probably 3 months without food. So
Yeah.
you're not going to die by not eating, but you will get many benefits from not
Yeah.
doing it. And fasting has been around since the dawn of time,
Mm.
because again, go back to the ancestral living. We would have had to wait for our meal. We wouldn't have known when it was coming until we
Yeah.
was at first we would have been hunters, and then we would have been hunter gatherers, and then came the nasty industrial revolution, or the agricultural revolution, and then the industrial revolution. So when we got agriculture, we didn't bother moving around. We was just planting, which was
Yeah.
good in a sense. And then that's kind of got out of control, but we won't go there. But originally, we would have had to chase stuff down. Okay, we've killed something, whatever it may be. We've ate it, round a fire as a community, like it should be done. And then we might not know when the next meal's coming. It might be 3 weeks before the next meal comes. So we're wired up to be able to go for periods of time of not
Yeah.
eating. And going without is amazing. And we've just spoken about food. We've just talked about fasting of food. You can fast from sex. You can fast from dopamine.
Yeah.
You can fast from social media. You can fast from toxic people.
Mm.
The list goes on and on. So, I mean, fasting is obviously related a lot to food, but you can fast from anything.
Yeah. Anything that you feel comes into your life and isn't of benefit, like toxic people. I'm quite good at fasting from toxic people. That one
Yep.
happens quite naturally, I have to say.
You and me both.
I just take a really gentle step back if I find that people are toxic. All of this stuff there that we were talking about for me, is all about strengthening the mind, and you tapped into the chimp there, and the chimp's primal needs to procreate and eat and kind of build bigger troops around it. But whenever we do stuff like the fasting or the cold water or whatever it is, we're just retraining the mind, aren't we? And we should point out as well that as human nature goes on, or as it has gone on, the human mind has got more and more. I tapped into this earlier. I want to say the word softer, but it doesn't sound very fair. But what do I want to say about this? Chimp is really powerful. Chimp is always like 5 times stronger, 5 times faster than the human part of our brain. But it feels like as time has gone on, we have got quite soft. So now we're trying to retrain our brains into this strength that was there. It was there before, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It
and we can do it because in the last 20 years, we've learned about neuroplasticity, and we didn't even know about that before. And now we know that we can make new neurons, we can fire new neurons, the brain is malleable, we can develop and strengthen the brain in many different ways. And these two that we've spent a bit of time talking about today, cold therapy and fasting, they will allow your brain to function better, more effectively, more productively, get better results. Have less worry, have less fear, have less anxiety, all the stuff that's kind of stigmatized and that's around us all the time now, that we all suffer with, we all struggle with. I mean, I'm no saint. I don't go through life without having a bit of fear and anxiety and worries and whatnot, but we are able to navigate these troubles when we start putting things like fasting or cold therapy into our lives, or a multitude of other things as well. You don't have to do these two. There's many other things that you can do to benefit your mind.
There's so many different ways that we can step into fear and retrain our minds that we can do this. I have a theory now, not a theory. I have a thing in my head that if somebody asked me to do something, somebody asked me to go and speak in front of 5,000 people, my immediate answer would be, yeah, of course, I'll do that for you. And then afterwards, I would walk away and go, what have I done? What have I just agreed to? And then I would then build up the resilience or the strength or whatever it is I need to be able to do that. I would then build it up because I know that I can. I know there's a belief there that I can, but I always say yes first and then think about the consequences just a little bit later.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what fear is, or whatever's going on in your mind, you'll know this better than anyone. It's just the story that we're telling ourselves. Yeah. And people, like you said earlier, oh, I could never do that. Well, people look at these big presenters, or so like Tony Robbins, or these people that play football in front of, well, they don't at the moment, but usually 55, 60, 70,000. And like, oh, how do they do that? I could never do that. Well, don't you think they have the same fears as before they step out? Like, there's some top presenters who you'd look at and think they're incredible, and they've got loads of success and loads of money in the bank and loads of notoriety, but some of them throw up before they go on stage. They've got a bucket, they still get nervous, But they've learnt to build that resilience, to quieten that monkey in the mind down,
Yeah.
and go about their business. So it happens to the best of us. So maybe change the narrative, change the story is a good
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. And I guess part of my job is to help people understand where the narrative or the story has come from.
Mm,
Uh, Two primary places, either primary carers or the world around us, because we are surrounded by a society that feeds us. I really wanted to swear then, feeds us utter rubbish all the time in terms of expectations. So, but we know we get that, and we know that a lot of that comes from social media. There was two other things on my list that I really want to talk to you about, but I think if you would allow me another recording, then I think we could schedule another recording. I want to. The last thing I want to ask you is, because again, and I got this from your list, the basics on living a longer, happier, more joyful life for you. And I want to finish on this because it feels really powerful, because those things there that you've mentioned feel like they are, I don't know, they are things that people search for all the times. On a Wednesday night, I do a wellness live for an hour, and last week I picked the subject of happiness. And it was I was like, oh, this is brave going into happiness. What's happiness? Where does it come from? How do we get happiness? Do we buy it from Tesco's? All of those kind of things. And we looked into it, and it was a really powerful hour to look at it. Do you know what I mean? And I started by asking people on a week to week basis, how much, but percentage wise, how much would you be happy in terms of happiness? And I gave my answer first. I think mine was 50%. If I could say I was happy 50% of a week, then I'd be quite good with that, because I'm aware that we have to go through a range of of emotions. And actually contentment, if I can spend most of my time in contentment, then, and peace is my one word, is what I love, the word peace, because it feels like the one thing that I've chased all my life. I just want to be peaceful.
mm.
That's all I want. So for you, what are your basics for
Yeah, no
living
worries.
a
I
longer,
mean,
happier?
yeah. So my kind of mission statement, and it's on my podcast, it's on my website, it's everywhere, is inspiring people, or the actual full mission statement is inspiring every person that I come into contact with to live a longer, healthier, happier, and more joyful life. So longer and healthier, we've kind of we've ticked a little bit of that already
Yeah,
with some of the stuff that we've spoken about. And it's interesting, that kind of mission statement that I've got, because if you've got, I don't know, 1,000 people in a room and said, oh, would you like to live longer and healthier? I don't think all the hands would go up, but a lot of them would go up.
yeah,
But if you said, would you like to live a life full of happiness and joy? I think everyone would stick their hand up.
yeah,
Who wants to be miserable? Who wants to be down? Who wants to live a life of anger and hate, of resentment? Nobody.
mm,
Nobody wants that. We all want to vibrate higher. We all want love and joy in our life.
mm,
So how do I go about do that? And it's quite simple. And people might think, oh, whatever, I've heard that before, but it is simple. It's being present. Being present.
yeah,
If you can be in the now, because it's the only matter of time, or it's the time doesn't exist, but it's the only time that is now. When did you do something now? When did it happen now? It only happens in the now. So when we can kind of not eliminate, but quieten down the past and
yeah,
quieten down the future, and be in this present, ever present moment of now, then we can live more joyfully. We can live a
yeah,
happier life. And I think if we do that as well, if we live present, then we will live a longer and healthier life as well.
yeah,
So they kind of all go into this, or all funnel into it. So being present is one of the key things that you can do. And I know this might sound a bit new age, and if people have read the works of Eckhart Tolle, they would have heard this, the power of now and all that kind of stuff. And the sages have spoken about it for a long, long time. But it's so true. When you can ground yourself in the present moment and enjoy the process, enjoy what's happening, rather than focusing on the end goal, or focus on what happened yesterday or the week before, or what your parents did to you or whatever. If we can get grounded in this present moment, be right here, right now, enjoy it, enjoy the process. I guarantee you, you'll live a longer, healthier, happier, more joyful
yeah.
life.
I love the phrase, if you're sad or depressed, your thoughts are in the past. And if you're anxious or worried, your thoughts are in the future. Only in the here and now can you actually be can you be peaceful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Buddha said
And
that.
and I wasn't sure who'd said it. Pretty sure it was somebody important. And
Pretty
it's
important.
yeah, I'll say. It's just a really powerful saying, and it's a really simple way for people to understand if they're feeling sad. Then quite often they're in the past somewhere. It's really interesting with psychotherapy. We nearly always go into the past, but we go into the past as a seeing, as a let's understand it. Because sometimes,
Yeah.
particularly for me, when I look at my therapy, I have to understand where I came from and how I became who I am, because then I can start to reprogram it. Because once I can see it, I can own it, and then I can go, oh, I get it now. I understand something that happened to. I was ill when I was a baby, for example, and what that might have done to my mind because I nearly died. I can understand it, and then I go, oh yeah, I've got it. Now I can begin to reprogram it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I just want to point out as well, you made a great point, is that I'm not sitting here saying, forget everything that's happened to you and forget the past. And
yeah,
I'm not sitting here saying, don't visualize, because I use reflection, reminiscing, and
yeah,
I use visualization pretty much every day. So
yeah,
there are times where I'm thinking about what's happened or I'm
yeah,
working on things that have happened. And there are times where I'm visualizing where I want to be in 5, 10,
yeah,
15, 20,
yeah,
25 years from now. So those things are powerful as well. So I'm not saying forget them, but the way that people relate to the past and the future is,
yeah,
as you exactly said, that Buddha quote, that they're kind of
yeah,
fearful or anxious or worried of what might happen in the future, or they're regretful or of what has gone. And you can't change the past. You can do some things to shape your future to some extent,
yeah,
but the only thing you can really affect is the here and now. So
yeah,
that it's important to focus on that. But I'm all for working on the past stuff, definitely, because everyone has trauma, everyone
yeah.
has stuff from this childhood or from ancestral trauma, if you want to go that far and that deep. So
Oh, a little bit of epigenetics thrown in there for good
yeah,
measure.
there's loads of
Yeah,
stuff. So we need to be aware of this and work this out so we can move forward and progress and live that
yeah,
longer, healthier, happier, and more joyful life. And I've mentioned a key word there, and it's a word that comes up all the time on my podcast, which is awareness.
yeah,
And we're not aware. We're not aware. People aren't aware. We're walking
no,
around with the veil over our head or the blinkers on, and
yeah,
we're not aware of what's going on around us. But then, more importantly, we're not self-aware. And self-awareness is probably the biggest superpower you can have.
hmm,
And you need to develop that like it's a bicep or
yeah,
a glute or whatever, or your abs. You need to develop it in the same way, develop your self awareness, because then when you become more aware and more self aware, then you'll be able to do the stuff that we're talking about living a more happy and joyful
yeah,
life. So being present is really key. And the other thing that I really want to mention is the strength of your relationships and having good people around you, less of the toxic people like we spoke about,
yeah,
and building a good relationships around you, whether that's your direct intimate partner, whether that's your family,
yeah,
whether it's your network, business associates. Just build a strong team and
mm,
a strong relationship of people around you, because the longest study ever done on human happiness, and we're talking about happiness right now, showed that it's your strength of your relationships. It was a 40-year or 50-year study at Harvard studying human happiness, and it boiled down to the strength of your relationships and how positive and strong those relationships are has a direct impact on your long-term happiness.
yeah,
So if you build good relationships, then you're going to live a happier life, because a 40-year study showed it. And it's
yeah,
also, I think, either the second or maybe the first most viewed TED talk ever. So people should go and check that out. It's like a 12-minute TED talk,
yeah.
and it's just amazing.
Something really powerful in that. What did somebody say to me the other week? It was on another podcast recording, and he said you become an amalgamation of the the five people you spend the most time with in your world. You become an amalgamation of those five
Yeah.
people, or you are affected by, which again is really really true. So, and I'm always saying that to people: check out who you're spending time with. Do they bring to your table, or do they just take from your table? and and there are times through periods of time of friendships and relationships where somebody might keep bringing the table and you're taking, but then it ebbs and flows. You'll know in an intimate relationship, it ebbs and flows, doesn't it? But what it
Mm.
shouldn't be is one-sided all the time, because then we know it's unhealthy.
Yeah,
Going back to the past and the present, the past and the future, it's about looking at the past and the future, but in really, really healthy ways, in productive ways that we can then take from that and enhance our lives. So
absolutely, absolutely.
I
I
feel like
like
I could,
the past is your teacher, like it's a
yeah.
teacher for you.
Oh
So
yeah,
learn the lessons from it, and then make sure that you work on them in the present, so you
yeah,
can move into the future in a in
yeah.
a in a more productive way, as you said.
When I was doing the when I was doing some research on the happiness live that I did last week, I came across this really random fact that I love, and it was, I can't remember where this study was done, but when you plan a holiday or a trip or something like that, you get something like 8 weeks worth of happiness just through the planning. Not joyous like I'm bouncing off the ceiling, but you get a good feeling for about 8 weeks. When you actually take the holiday, it lasts for about the good feeling you get from that lasts for about 1 or 2 weeks. So actually, we get a lot more payback from the planning of a trip.
Mm.
And I read that and I was like, actually, I can believe that. I can completely, but I'd never seen it on paper, and I
Yeah.
certainly didn't know that people had studied it. So, what an amazing fact that is.
Yeah, definitely. And people should just try it. Just after you've listened to this podcast, just sit there, close your eyes, and
Yeah,
visualize. It could be the past or the future.
yeah,
Visualize a time in the past where you was extremely happy. It could be a wedding
yeah,
day or whatever, and then visualize in the future. If you're, let's say, for example, you're looking to lose weight, visualize yourself with the pounds drop that you want to lose, or you're in the dress or the suit that you want to get into, or you have booked a holiday and you visualize yourself on the beach. Just do that, try it,
yeah,
anyone listening to this, and I guarantee you'll feel better, and I
yeah,
guarantee you'll feel happier as well. And there's other cool things that you can do for your happiness. So, like putting a pencil in your mouth forces your mouth into a smile, and that sets off the chemicals in your brain, and you're automatically happy. Another
yeah,
one, again, it was at Harvard. I don't know why all the best studies are at Harvard, maybe because it's the most prestigious uni. But another one was done at Harvard, and it's called the victory pose, like Rocky.
yeah,
So if you put
yeah,
your arms above your head and you
yeah,
pump your arms above your head 3 times, they showed this in scientific research that it
yeah,
increases your happiness levels and keeps you more grounded in the present. That was shown in a scientific study just by
yeah.
pumping your arms above your head. So there's little things that we can do in the now to improve our happiness.
There's a that prompts me of Amy Cudd's TED talk on, I can't remember what it was called, but she encourages people into, if you've got an interview coming up or somewhere where you need to feel more confident, and you do a power pose, and you just do a big power pose, arms right above your head, and it literally changes the way that we feel, and then we go into the interview empowered. But
Mm.
they did tests on two groups of people and kind of measured their hormones before and then afterwards. So
Yeah.
just by doing something, we can trick the mind. We're talking about mind hacks, aren't
Of
we? We
course.
can trick the mind into thinking we're smiling and therefore releasing those hormones.
Yeah, and especially the subconscious mind. You'll know this. The subconscious mind does whatever it's told. Whatever you give it, it will
Whatever
do.
it's
So,
trained to do.
yeah, whatever it's trained. Yeah, so feed it the right stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That all of that positive stimuli. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours on all of this stuff, but we're going to have to stop because I'm aware that actually I'm aware that I've got an appointment coming up as well, and I'm aware that you'll have a busy day as well. Can we agree at some point in the future that we'll come back to this and pick up some of the subjects that I didn't pick up?
Absolutely, and you'll have to come on my podcast as well, and we can
I'd,
dive into psychotherapy.
I'd love to do that. I'd love to do that. It's really nice that two worlds that are might be viewed as opposite, but actually pull together, and there's so much crossover. It's ridiculous. I
Hmm.
guess my past of being in the fitness world and where I'm at now kind of leads into that, but I just it kind of it almost makes me joyous for two worlds to meet like this, and it just feels really nice. So
Yeah, well,
can we?
it's holism, isn't it? You talk about holistic health, and that's
Yeah,
what it is. It's
yeah,
wholeness. We're not just looking at one element of health and well-being. We're looking at the complete picture, the whole
yeah.
thing,
We have
holism,
to.
holistic. It's the whole
Yeah,
thing, and you have to,
yeah,
because too many people just focus on one kind of avenue. And don't get me wrong, it's good to have a niche and be focused on an area, but I think it's everything. It's all encompassing health
yeah.
is. So we need to focus on everything. And if we miss one thing, then we're missing a trip, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really value that. And I'm sure that people listening to this podcast are going to get an awful lot from it. So just honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that.
My pleasure.
That's it. We are done with another recording of Invincible You. I nearly forgot the title then. He says laughing. So if we're not covering subjects that you want us to cover, then please get back to us and please give us subjects that you want us to cover, and we will do our damnedest to do that. Thank you for Home Radio for producing these. Home Radio can be accessed via iOS or Android apps. I have to really think about this. It can be accessed via your Alexa, or you can just get them on www.homeradio.co.uk. Thank you again to Ali for being here today. And we will see you soon with another podcast. Take care, be kind to yourself, and be kind to everybody around you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.